Well, good afternoon, one and all. Thank you for being here for this year's Quality of Place Conference, History Matters. You all should have a program that outlines our speakers and a little blurb about Richmond Columbian Properties. Our third speaker is Adam Sanregret. Adam and I met in Cincinnati. Jimmy and I own a property in Cincinnati as our getaway place. In fact, we call it our lake house. Does Cincinnati have a lake? So Adam is involved with real estate sales. He's a real estate broker and specializes in marketing historic properties. So this is, I think, an important thing for us to learn about, is that there is money to be made in buying and selling old properties. And so he's got an interesting talk to share with you.
Just a little bit background about me. Originally was a restorer and preservationist before actually getting into real estate. And I started off as a school teacher, and so I had no money but plenty of time. And so I had to do all these trades myself, and now with preservation, I don't do it nearly as much hammer swinging as I used to, because I found out that our people are better than people that actually do it professionally are better at it than I am, and also now I can afford them. So when brokering historic homes, basically is trying to figure out what I'm trying to do is help someone that owns an older home get it out of their hands with some money into a new owner's hands. Sometimes that's a beautiful story where someone's been restoring their house and it's time for them to move on and they want to pass the torch and find the next door to the house. And there's other times someone inherits their uncle's house, they don't want it, they don't know how to get rid of it, and they're trying to figure out the pitfalls of how to get that house sold. And also I'm working with buyers that are trying to sort through, how do I make this process work? I want an historic house, but not sure how to accomplish that with all the difficulties of older homes. So starting off, when I'm trying to do this and figure out who are our sellers, who are our buyers, the people that are the buyers of historic properties, obviously the most common sense one is like people that love the aesthetics of old houses. Everyone loves the aesthetics, well, not everyone, many people love the aesthetics of old houses, but they don't also want to live in them at the same time because they don't want to deal with them. People that love history, and this is kind of a big overlapping Venn diagram, probably everyone in this room, both is in the category of I love history, I love the aesthetics of architecture, and so that's obviously very common. Then we have other folks that actually don't really care about either the history or the architecture, but they want to live in a downtown walkable area. They want to live in like Richmond, where you can walk to the restaurant, walk to the bar, but you need, typically the housing stock there is 100-year-old housing stock and all the problems that are with old houses, even if you don't care for old houses. And probably the most common is actually, it's affordable. Probably the majority of people that are buying older homes in the Midwest is because that's the house they can afford, but they still have to deal with all the objections of old houses. And so a lot of times our concept is, how do we get the concept of owning an old house palatable to a homeowner? The concept is old houses aren't museums. I mean, there are a few house museums, but for the most part, if you can't have the house functional for modern, uses, plumbing, more than one bathroom, all those type of things, that it's hard to convince people to continue owning a house, an older house, and prefer to move to something new, making the house obsolete, which then becomes demolished. So the objections, the most common one is objections with floor plan. Oftentimes, when these houses are built, if it's an 1880s house, like pre-1900 house, they didn't have indoor plumbing. And so when they introduced indoor plumbing, they put it where it was most easy. They put, oftentimes, the bathrooms were where the kitchens were because, hey, the plumbing's there, very simple, and it's much better than going outside for the bathroom. So also a lot of tandem bedrooms and things like that. Kitchens that aren't really functional due to size, because you look at a 1890s kitchen, and there was a sink and a kitchen table and maybe a freestanding cabinet. So a whole different set of needs from current house. So obviously having laundry machines at all, a modern luxury of the last 100 years, but these days it's hard to convince people to go down to their 1880s cellar to go do their laundry. And so trying to find ways to make it work with laundry on a living level. Lack of larger closets and storage spaces, which is obvious. And so when I'm working with people looking at these older homes, oftentimes we have the same problem over and over again with floor plan. And so a couple of examples of that are, and also not open floor plans, where so many people want a kitchen where they can hang out and like be able to see their kids doing their homework, all that type of stuff. And most houses that are built before World War II don't have that setup. Concerns about mechanical systems, heating systems that don't have the ability to put AC on them or not well-functioning AC. Concerns about electrical wiring, old plumbing. Windows, got all the conversation about windows and all the headaches with that. Box gutters, old slate roofs, clay tile roofs, parking and lack of parking in garages is another objection for people. Why they might love old houses, love the aesthetics, but I don't want to live somewhere I can't have parking. And environmental and health concerns. Lead-based paint being probably the most known or the most common. Lead supply pipes, asbestos installation, siding or roofing. And so our goal is all these people love old houses, and probably actually many people in this room may be the case where you like old houses, you like going to house tours, but you don't want to deal with these headaches of functionally obsolete floor plans, dealing with having to, only one bathroom, or having tandem rooms or tiny closets you can't even get a hanger in. And so this example of floor plan, you actually can't really see the labels of the rooms, but on the first floor, living room going to a dining room, that functions pretty decently well. And then hallway with staircase, kitchen with bathroom in it. Why is that bathroom there? In 1880, there wasn't a bathroom there, but in 1910, probably that's when the bathroom appeared, and it's better than going outside, so let's put it there. But then they also, we don't want to have to deal with plumbing, anywhere else, so when we do on the second floor, we'll put that same bathroom right above it. And then so if you are living in the front bedroom, you have to go through the middle bedroom, through the hall, then through someone else's bedroom, into that back room. And when you see houses that are like Covington, I've never shown houses in Richmond, Indiana, because I'm not licensed. Covington, Newport, North Side, over the Rhine, you see this all the time, and people don't think outside the box of how do you fix this. So on the same house, post-renovation, yeah, it looks a little bit better on the outside, doesn't it? Basically the living room and dining room didn't have to be changed at all. The hallway from when it was a two-family at some point in time was converted to get a half bath in underneath the staircase there. And then the kitchen that actually has much more usable space. On the second floor, with all these shotguns, that middle bedroom is what do you do with it? Because no one wants the bedroom you're walking through. And so that's usually the sacrificial room. So get a bedroom in the back, get a bedroom in the front, basically make that middle room sort of a hallway room and get your family bath and a decent sized closet in there. And then the third floor, that was basically 2 tandem rooms and then another sort of bedroom, storage room in the back, basically getting a master suite or primary suite with a walk-in closet, then having laundry and bathroom on your, all on that same floor where the majority of that stuff's happening. This floor plan, even if it's not a Second Empire or not an Italianate, when you drive through a town and you see these shotgun houses, the floor plan is basically the same regardless of what the front facade is. Another example, and I saw you guys have a ton of 4 squares here. 4 square being where you walk in to the first floor, you're in a foyer, to the one side of the foyer is a living room or parlor, behind the parlor is a dining room, and then the other corner behind the foyer next to the dining room is the kitchen. Well, the second floor on these things, oftentimes the only bath in the whole house was on that second floor. This was actually a 6-bedroom house, so 6 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, that's a lot. The solution to it, and I'm just concentrating on the second floor, is sacrifice one of your 6 bedrooms because there's 2 more bedrooms on the third floor and get yourself another bathroom, walk-in closet, and laundry in that area that you're sacrificing. Back to the concept. So this is one where this was a shell that was vacant for 8 or 9 years before this lady did the restoration on it, or basically complete remodel on it, but it's not remodel because it's actually being restored. And the floor plan, when she bought it, had living room, dining room, kitchen, of course the bathroom in the kitchen, and then that was the only bathroom for the whole house, but still 1890, or actually 1910, beats going outside to the outhouse. And so 3 bedrooms and then sort of this loft attic space. And when she was done with it, basically on the first floor, she did open up. And that's like one of those things where is it a sin? Maybe it's a sin, but I'd rather someone save the house and make adaptations to it and enjoy living there versus tearing it down and building something new. And so opened it up. So the living room, dining room, which are pretty small, compact rooms, are opened up and much more opened up to the kitchen, as you can see from the photos here. And then this was only an 1,800 square foot house, and they were able to get in, it's kind of small here, kept that bedroom how it is, sacrificed that middle one, got a master suite here, and then laundry here, and then an additional bathroom for the family. And then there's a second bedroom, and third floor becomes a third bedroom. Mechanical systems. So HVAC. So often you walk into a house and radiator system, most people that are under any of our ages have not even are not familiar with radiant heat, whether it's steam or hot water, and it's always hard to find people to work on them. They're great systems, but because they don't have any way to provide cooling, you have to put in a secondary system for cooling, and so that's some of the problems with them, but a very great system. Ducted heat systems, where this is a gravity heat furnace, but all these old houses from before 1940, all of them started off, if they have vents, they did not have forced air, and of course not AC. And so let's first start off with steam and hot water. So boiler systems, they can last forever. I was showing a house for $550,000 on the east side of Cincinnati, had a boiler identical to this, original 1920s boiler. It was actually coal initially, and this is where they convert the coal to gas. And they don't break. I mean, there's a pump. That's the only thing that can really break on the thing. And they're actually still pretty efficient, even the old ones, because radiant heat's a very efficient system. And then, so if I'm walking in a house, showing it to someone, and there's vents, like, okay, at least we're part of the way there for being able to get AC. But the difficulty is all these houses were invented with gravity heat, not forced air, and not anticipating needing return ductwork for AC, because obviously cold air goes down, and so the gravity heat system, you'd see a bunch of great big floor return vents on the first floor, oftentimes down at the bottom of the steps, because the concept was the heat went up on its own through the ductwork, and then came back down. Now you can replace this with a forced air furnace, but all the ductwork going up in the walls, that all typically stays the same, and there's no way for the AC to get up. So you're always trying to come up with solutions for getting cold air returns, and oftentimes just getting AC up to the third floor, even with cold air return, is just an impossibility. So solutions with that, obviously, you can throw that window unit in the top floor. That's way less desirable. But there's also systems where, with a hot water heat system, where you can not involve any ductwork at all, not be less invasive to or destructive on the property, to use a split pack, or oftentimes is actually the first house you saw, put the furnace in like a closet area of the third floor and find ways to run ductwork that's not too interruptive of the style of the house. Electrical. So knob and tube, everyone's scared of it. It's actually probably the safest system, if not screwed with, of electrical. The concept is that even with a fusing system that didn't work great, all the wires run through, never actually touch anything combustible, because there's clay tubes that go through the wood or knobs that attach to it, so the wire theoretically should not ever be touch anything, so it could be glowing hot red and not catch on fire. Now, problem is that people always, they just start adding things to it and do it incorrectly and overamp it, and that's when fires happen. With insurance currently, you can't insure a house with exposed knob and tube. And so what does that mean? Basically, the way to fix that is, and it sounds way less daunting than removing every single wire in the house, is the electrician removes all the knob and tube in the basement where you can see it, puts a junction box and it still goes up inside the wall. And just because you can't see it doesn't make it any safer, but we can get insurance and my buyer can buy the house. Fuses, I mean, it's just, yes, the case. So actually that junction box, that's an example of what you see. This is actually up in an attic because the inspector can see the knob and tube in the attic. So what they do is they remove all the knob and tube you can see, and then as soon as it goes down into the ceiling to go to a light fixture, then it goes to the knob and tube. Is that any safer? No, but we got the insurance. Fuses. So the fuses actually aren't a bad system, but there's nothing stopping someone if they have a circuit that has a window unit, a hair curler, and a refrigerator on it, and it keeps on blowing that 15 amp breaker, 15 amp fuse, where they just screw in a 30 amp fuse, which basically defeats the purpose of having a fuse in the first place. And so oftentimes knob and tube wiring and fuses are deemed as bad, but it's because you can screw with them more than you should be able to. Plumbing. So we're not seeing nearly as much galvanized these days. Galvanized had a lifespan of about 75 years. When I was first selling real estate 24 years ago, saw it all the time. By this point, almost all of it's gone. And people aren't typically scared of plumbing because it's not going to electrocute you. It's not going to catch on fire. But oftentimes trying to find the correct contractor to work with that is the least invasive in the replacement of the plumbing. And then of course cast iron, which you still see a lot of cast iron still. And that usually lasts 100 years and is just kind of a ticking time bomb, but we have the contractors for that. Box gutters, slate roof, tile roof. Having the right contacts again on this is if you call a modern roofer, their only solution is, oh, this has to go, and just tear it off. And so having a resource like Tom of who to call for this type of work is invaluable. Windows. And actually, I think the gentleman that had the question earlier about the windows, there's a lot what he was saying that we are bumping into. I'm an old house purist. I'm a advocate of saving the original windows. There's no window today that is going to last 130 years like these windows have. But then we still have the same problem. I have someone, they have a budget and they need the windows either all rebuilt, and typically the rebuilding costs for most of these contractors are $600-700 a window, and that's just recording the things, like putting the sash cords back in. And then the storm windows, we used to have much more affordable resources for that, but as there's less and less of them, they stop producing fairly affordable storm windows, and we can't find storm windows out there for under $350. So if you're trying to convince your home buyer that, hey, this is, let's keep these original windows, but they're looking at $350 to put the vinyl window in that will last 15, 20 years, or they're looking at $1,000 or more to restore the window and have a storm window on, it's sometimes very hard because of their budget, but I'd rather them buy the house and keep the house than let the house go into more decay and not, and become obsolete and not continue to exist. So solutions, triple track windows, as we were just talking about before, they're less readily available at affordable prices. There's replacement wood-clad windows, but usually, again, you're talking, like these windows here are probably $3,000 a piece. So not every homeowner's budget has that in their budget for them. Parking and garages. So one of the selling points about why you want to live in an older house is oftentimes it's a walkable neighborhood. And the reason why it's walkable is all the houses typically had small enough yards. Often these are all 25-foot yards, and they had to be that small in order for you to be able to actually walk to anything. But also there's the sacrifice of not having enough space to put garages and other off-street parking. Good things with these narrow lots is, if you look here, there's this same thing. Most of these have alleyways, and utilizing as much of these alleyways as possible to get garages into, because people do like having cars these days. And environmental and safety concerns. The most common one's lead-based paint. Tom was talking about the lead mitigation and the training for that. And this is actually less prevalent than it was when I was first in the business 25 years ago, just because most of the lead mitigation has already happened, or unfortunately those structures are no longer with us. Lead supply lines. Again, seeing less and less of it. If you go into a home and you look at the service line coming in and it has this little bulb thing where it connects to the shutoff, that's typically a lead line. Most communities have funding to assist with the cost of that. And the cost of doing it has actually really gone down because the thing on the right, they call that a mole. And so they drill a hole in the foundation, and this mole thing basically takes like a torpedo and just goes boop, 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 and comes out the other side where the street shutoff is, which makes it a little more affordable. Asbestos. So you'll see it in three forms. The most common is what you see on ductwork, or ductwork and heating, where it's basically like plaster of Paris, where they wrap it, and instead of plaster, it's asbestos, and that's actually the friable. That's the stuff that's really bad. Now, if you leave it alone, it's not as bad. It's the people that really had problems with it were the people that installed it or were removing it. The second type is you'll see this in houses mostly between like the 30s and 60s, 10 by 10 inch floor tiles, and those have asbestos fibers. They're not friable. Best thing to do is just go over top of it. And then you'll see both roofs and siding that are asbestos, but this is not friable and not at all dangerous. Now, do you want to go crush it up and breathe it in? No, that's not, but in and of itself, it's not a danger, and I can talk anyone over the idea of having asbestos siding because I live in a house myself with asbestos siding. So the overall concept is not we're trying to get people to modernize their historic house. We're trying to make sure these houses continue to exist for all the arguable reasons. Obviously, the greenest house is the existing house. But trying to get people over the objections of why they don't want to live in the older house or deal with it. Okay, that was hard. Questions?
I'll get one.
Sure.
So, I mean, a lot of the houses you've shown here and whatnot are in districts where it's already designed to live. They're already expensive homes because they're big and old and
Yeah.
everything. So, like right across the street here, we have a glut of a lot of deferred maintenance houses that go very cheap, and like the realtors don't want to deal with them. I remember when I first moved here, I asked the realtors, I'm like, I would love one of these older houses that I have to restore. We don't have any. Well, what do you mean we don't have any? Right, and so nobody wants to deal with them, and how do you get them back in a market to be able to be bought and sold?
So this guy that's the house I bought for $17,000 5 years ago. And
can I ask how much do you think it was actually worth?
It was a client of mine had bought it for $7,000 5 years before, and he was leaving town and wanted me to put it on the market, and I was going to list it for $19,900. And I said, well, actually, this is a great shell. It has all this original detail. And he said, well, you gave me $10,000 more than I paid for. I'm happy for it. But no, I think it was worth about $20,000. Now this is 5 years ago. This house in this condition now is about $75,000, $80,000 in that current condition. And so part of the reason I bought in this neighborhood is because the affordability. Probably across the street, I don't know anything about Richmond value. Are those, $30,000, $40,000?
Roughly $30,000.
Yeah. I mean, what the difficult thing is why you have to do it economically, and you can't do everything exactly preservation. Like in this house that I have, on the second and third floors, it had wood windows, but they weren't the original wood windows. It was like windows that they had put in the openings and the cost to have wood windows built for that would have been like $2,000 a window. And I spent $300 a window because it was already gone.
How do you convince realtors to actually want to get involved in selling these homes? Because right now, my experience is they don't even want to touch it. They don't want anywhere near it.
I don't know if I don't have the answer for that because that's what I do,
So that was my experience getting here is I wanted to buy one, and all the realtors I came to just said there weren't any. And now that I live here, I know that there are plenty of them.
Well, part of the reason I think actually Matt found me is he realized through my involvement in Cincinnati Preservation Association and my website, Cincinnati Historic Homes, that, hey, this is a guy that understands this, and probably, the benefit of the modern era is you can go Google or, God forbid, AI, the question of who's the person that understands historic homes that sells real estate here. And that's actually how I get most of my business. It's not from my smooth talking.
Get your realtor's license.
I'll add that to my list.
Yes.
Are you willing to share what you're seeing as your average per square foot rehab cost in your market? Like, what's it running?
It all depends upon the spectrum, but I would say on the low side, $50 a square foot, and the high side, $150 a square foot. We see flippers that are just, lipsticking pigs that are probably doing it for close to $50 a square foot.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate that.
Yeah. But so I've also seen, I see good flippers and I see bad flippers, and I also see flippers, and when I say flippers, I'm just kind of painting the whole idea of someone that buys the property with the intent of making money by fixing it up. And I've seen people go in and do amazing craftsmanship, but they don't think out the floor plan thing, and they did an amazing job, but they still kept the bathroom in the kitchen, and it's like, well, still kept the tandem bedrooms, and it's like, yeah, that's just not palatable for how people want to live. Yes.
It's a quick question. In our neighborhood, which was historic in Dayton, there was a woman who fixed, she just would move into homes.
I know who you're talking about. She was murdered by one of her tenants, that person?
No.
Oh, okay.
But it's a different kind of rehabbing. It's
Oh, yeah.
And she would take paint from woodwork and do beautiful work, and it was incredible. Do you run across that much? You have people like that around in your historic area?
I do. I do it myself. I'm actually working on the house next to this one currently. But no, I have a handful of people that I work with that they're purists with what they do. Now, there always has to be some sort of balance, because also you don't go into it to go bankrupt. And so that's like where the equation with the restoring the old windows is like, well, hey, I have a budget. I can only sell this house for $300,000. If I blow $50,000 rebuilding these windows versus $9,000 to put vinyls in, it's like, I want to save the house, but you also don't want to go bankrupt at the same time. So it's like, what's the equation? What's the bigger sin?
You ever use Bondo on window?
I've used Bondo for many things, including windows.
When you're finishing a home, at what scale do you finish it before you tip the point? So are you doing blinds? I love all my blinds from Stu. Are you doing appliances? What level are you finishing a house at before you're like, oh, we might have gone too far on that. We might have spent too much money on that.
I always do appliances just because I'm also a salesperson, so I work with. Sometimes I always talk about millennials. Now I'm actually dealing with the generations younger than millennials, where I'll take someone through a house, and it's an inferior house, but it's staged well with really pretty furniture that's not going to stay there. And I've seen houses sell for 20, 30% higher than what they should have sold. And so if I'm representing a seller, and I'm like, man, this kind of looks tattered. You had a dog in here, and she spends $1,500 on staging, and I sell the house for a lot more money than I think it would sell for. My fiduciary duty is to my seller to get the highest price. And so, no, if I'm doing a flip, and I don't really do very many flips, I do restorations. I always include the appliances, because someone walks in, that 30-year-old buyer, and they look in the kitchen and they've seen the naked wall behind with the cabinets. That doesn't seem appealing. So, no, the finished product. You said blinds?
Yeah, so our organization restores historic homes, renovates historic homes, and we get to the end, and we always have this debate internally, like, how far do we go? So
this is more of a aesthetics thing. Window coverings right now you don't see them in decorating. And so I never really do window coverings on a flip, and I'm actually advising Camp Washington Redevelopment Corporation on a couple of properties now. We always do the staging with them, because especially even when they try to make the floor plan make more sense, they still are a little wonky. And it's like, what room is this supposed to be? Because it's the walk-through room. Like, well, for instance, on this one, this is my house, staging the office as an office versus this is a weird, odd-shaped room. And so staging oftentimes helps spell out to that consumer of, oh, this is what this room can be.
Okay, thank you.
I have to say this, use Abatron wood epoxy and not Bondo. It's just as easy to work with, and it's a much better product.
I don't disagree with him, but I've also used plenty of Bondo.
Here's a trend I sell window shades and blinds. Here's a trend I see in your homes, black vinyl. Would that break down more quickly than white
Black vinyl blinds?
windows?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because it absorbs the heat, and that's the worst thing for vinyl, right? The heat.
Oh yeah, I also see a lot of flippers where this might be not an Indiana thing, but a Cincinnati metro area where they paint the whole house black or a charcoal gray, and sometimes they're actually spraying that on vinyl siding. Well, you get to July and that vinyl siding goes, it's like, the black vinyl, that's going to break apart in a second.
I have a nice customer, and they're really proud of these, trendy black windows, and I know if I put a black mesh fabric, there's good and bad with that. You can see through it better, but it does absorb heat.
Yeah.
And that window is just gonna fry on the outside,
Yeah.
irregardless of the window shape.
I mean, if you're doing an aluminum window, and some of these bigger windows, 'cause once they get too floppy as vinyls, I think you'd probably be fine with an aluminum window with black. Yeah, but vinyl, that seems like a terrible idea.
I don't know what the trend is with painting your house black. I'm like, that's gonna be awful in the summer. How good is your air conditioner?
Oh, one of the unfortunate things that I've seen doing this 24 years, and how so many houses that I've showed 10, 15 years ago, like, oh, this had all this beautiful natural woodwork, and it's like the percentage of houses with the original woodwork not painted, it keeps on getting, like, there must be like 3% now.
But Adam, don't you think, in the long run, for the value of the property, making the investment in repairing the windows is a better option as opposed to repairing it yourself?
So I want to say yes, but the reality is no. I mean, like, that just reality of not saying that's not preservation. I'm talking just dollars and cents. When you're taking like 98% of the population through a house, and there's new or newish windows that, they're not yellow. I mean, they're vinyl windows, and even if they're 10 years old, there's no opposition to that. Now, if it's a large historic home like that, I'm not sure if you're over my house over in North Avondale, where each room had different species of wood. That'd be an absolute sin to do that. But probably the person that's buying that house needs to have the pockets to deal with that. But if I'm selling a house in Westwood across from your lake house for $170,000, and her total budget's $220 to buy a house and get it into habitable condition, and it's either don't buy the house because I can't afford to restore the windows, or buy the house and put vinyl windows in, and there's a house saved and a homeowner, it's hard to, you understand what I'm saying? It's hard to reconcile that.
Right.
Thanks for the plug.
The last time Matt invites me to anything.
No. We bought our house for $7,500. And this is back in 1988. Fortunately, everything is still there. The windows, some need to be repaired, but others were still in fine shape. Everything was in the house, all of the woodwork and everything. So we didn't have to replace a lot of things.
The difficult thing with the windows is so often people have lost their original wood storms, and the inability to find affordable aluminum windows that you used to be able to get for, now they sound like an old man, like $120 for a triple track window, and now you're looking at more cost for the storm window than someone replacing it with a vinyl window. And if someone's on a budget and they like old houses, but they also need to get a house, it's hard to completely justify it.
Kind of depends on the house, the size, and
Yeah.
significance.
Exactly. Yes.
Adam, you briefly mentioned working with Beth and the team at Cincinnati Preservation.
Yes.
I understand you guys are corporate sponsors with them on many of their events.
Yes.
Do you guys ever seek to protect your investment on the exterior by granting easements to CP?
So I'm always asked about that. And just kind of like to give a background on what he's talking about. So I have plenty of people and clients that inquire about the historic easement. Basically, the concept that it would prevent someone for the next 100 years from doing anything dumb to the exterior of their house, and that's typically policed by Cincinnati Preservation Association or some third party. But in order to do that, you have to basically set up a fund to pay an organization to do that for the next 100 years. I mean, it's kind of like building a big funeral monument, but not funding the cost to maintain it, or over the next 100 years. And usually the cost of that is about $100,000. And so if I am dealing with someone that has no bottoms to their pockets, like, yeah, that sounds great. Majority of people are like, oh, I guess I'll hope that they don't do something dumb to it. That's the practicality part of it is usually where it doesn't come to fruition very often. And the reason why it costs that, basically, you have to pay an organization every year to go out and make sure they're doing the work, and then take legal action against them if they're not.
Are your clients getting younger by any chance? Because we noticed that in our historic district, with the buyers begin to be like the younger generation.
Yes, and that's for that, probably more to that third grouping. And everyone that likes historic houses somewhere fits in those four things, and usually are a bit of all of them, is there's a younger population that has more of an affinity to urban areas, and urban areas have older houses. And so many of them, they don't mind older houses, but they kind of got thrown into the old house buying category because they want something that's walkable in Cincinnati. It's a north side type area. But
Yeah, they don't mind living in the city.
they don't mind living in a city, yes. Or they prefer to live in a city.
Right.
That's what we like.
Any of the examples you gave, were any of these in preservation areas, or were this all voluntary restorations?
So this was my own residence. This one actually is not a restoration. I mean, it's well maintained. This is over in the Clifton Gaslight. And this is one of the ones that the modifications were done by the previous owner, but all the integrity of all the original detail is all intact. It's just they changed the floor plan, but actually matched everything up and has, if you didn't know that the floor, if you didn't know it's anachronistic to have two bathrooms on the same floor and a walk-in closet, you wouldn't know that it's not part of the original construction. And then this one was actually another lady that lives in Camp Washington that's restoring houses, and she does great work. And what was the original part of the question?
So are any of these parts in a preservation ordinance where that work had to go through a commission, or is this all just voluntary?
No, none of the examples I showed. So Cincinnati and Ohio in general has like the least amount of historic districts. Like actually the historic districts that have qualifications of what you can and can't do. I mean, Northern Kentucky, both Covington and Newport and Bellevue have large historic districts, and they're very well run, where they fight tooth and nail in Ohio to not allow for historic districts. And it sounds like you guys have more historic districts over here in Indiana than we're used to.
Well, Indiana just passed a law last year that if you are selling property in a area with a preservation ordinance, you have to disclaim that in the listing.
Oh, you do in Ohio as well, because otherwise someone.
So last year that was like a law that you must disclose that.
Because that makes sense, because if someone doesn't realize they can't do what they want with the real estate.
Well, realtors were not disclosing
Oh,
it
yeah.
because they don't want to lose sales.
Yeah, well, that'd be problematic.
Yes, but it was happening, so it finally went to law.
But then there is a selling point to having a building in a historic district.
Oh, if you look at where values are definitely higher in historic districts than non-historic districts. And part of the reason the values go up is because it disallows slum absentee landlords to continue doing that. But what his direct question was, are these, in Cincinnati, there's only really historic district you have is over the Rhine and little pockets around there, but there's not an actual designated historic district I can really think of outside of that. They're working for it in North Avondale, but yeah, it doesn't really exist very much in Cincinnati. So not in these cases, not saying that, yeah.
Okay, so you didn't mention having to go through like any approval process or anything?
No.
I assume this, yeah, none of these were.
None of them were, no. And it's actually something that we deal very little with. And with single-family residences, over the Rhine is mostly, large buildings that were flats with mixed use. And so there's not a whole lot of individual homeowners buying individual houses there that are in the historic districts. So not something I bump into myself personally much.
The part of my job for managing a very large preservation area that has, very strict guidelines. That's been very important to that neighborhood to keep it.
I think it's great. It's just not something I bump into as much. And I think that's probably colloquial to Cincinnati because Ohio being weird with making it so difficult to establish an historic district.
Then again, Ohio's very pro redevelopment.
Redevelopment?
Tax credits and.
Well, they've backed off on that too because they started disallowing historic tax credits to be combined with low income tax credits. And so often that's the only way you can, like when you're doing a project in inner city, to actually make sense of the math to get the project to work.
2 to 4.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you, Adam. Well, thank you all for being here today. This does end the conference. Network with one another. If the speakers are going to be here a while longer, perhaps you can ask further questions and have more dialogue. Look for our walking tours this summer. This fall we'll have our preservation dinner party where we give out the Virtue Award, Lucky Award for Preservation Heroes. Thank you again, and we certainly appreciate your hard work.